Welcome to the Love of the Star podcast. I'm Bobby Belt, Dallas Cowboys insider for 105 through the Fan in Dallas, your radio flagship home of the Cowboys, joined as always by former Super Bowl winning NFL scout Brian Broaddus. He is now the co-host of the G-Bag Nation, 2 to 7 p.m. Central, Monday through Friday on 105 through the Fan in Dallas. He is also the pre- and post-game co-host on the Dallas Cowboys radio network. And Brian, I got to say, and we'll get into the Panthers a little bit more later this week, but man, it's tough to totally get up for this football game coming up, right? And I thought Saad Youssef over at The Athletic had a nice question for Mike McCarthy on Wednesday, where he said, Mike, you've talked about measuring stick games and litmus tests and things like that. So what do you talk about, and how do you prep your team on a week like other games where you don't feel like the juice is there as much? And I thought it was a good question. You got what would be the answer from McCarthy, which was, by avoiding questions just like these. I don't bother with questions like these. We treat every game the same. We think back to the Cardinals, things like that. But I do think it is a good point, which is, hey, look, you got to watch out for the sleeping giant, or whatever it is. Not a giant, but you got to watch out for the wounded animal on the road in Carolina.
Desperate team.
Lots of turmoil there, but still something to watch out for nonetheless. We'll get ready for the Panthers a little bit more later this week.
I'll tell you real quick.
Brian, did you find that hard when you guys were with the Packers and you were having a lot of success? Did you find it hard to get up for teams that weren't very good?
No, we were when I first started with the Packers in '92, we were the team. We were everybody's homecoming game. We were the team that everybody scheduled for homecoming, because you thought you were going to get a win. And, for 20 years, the Packers, well, with the exception of 1989, the Packers were a terrible organization. Lost a lot of games, was never any good. A lot of hope, great fan base and all that. But, in 1992, we finished 9-7, and, very well could have been 10-6 if we had a chance to win at Minnesota, get in the playoffs. But man, it was tough because we were the team that everybody was trying to, and then we started going on a roll. We won like 6 straight games at the end, and it was kind of like, oh geez, I mean, maybe this team, maybe this is a team you're going to have to worry about. We went from being a team that, much like what the Houston Texans are going through right now. The Houston Texans are, they're further along than we were in Green Bay. At one point we were like 3-6, and then went on a run where we won 6 straight games, to finish out, and then, lost the last game. So we finished 9-7. But man, I tell you what, it was getting up for games. The better we got, we had a good veteran team that, I never felt like we played down to the level of teams. I never felt like there were times where we didn't play our best. All I know about with McCarthy and what you look at the Carolina win over Houston and how they did that.
Yeah.
And it'll get your attention. This is a team that's got, with the exception of the quarterback, I know looking at the offense, I'm going to look at the defense in the morning. This is a team that has a veteran offensive line. They have a veteran receiver. They have veteran running backs. They're not talent poor like last week. Like, you could watch the Giants tape and you could go, this is going to be a walk. This is going to be a walk. I don't feel this way with Carolina, because I feel like, and this is without even seeing their defense, which I'll look at tomorrow, and we'll talk about it a little bit later, another time, another show. But I kind of feel like, though, that there's only 17 of these games. And you don't want to happen to what happened to you with the Arizona game. That might turn into be a really bad loss for you.
It already is
a really bad loss when you look at the end of the day, as Bill Parcells would used to say. But when you look at that and you say 1 to the good or 1 to the bad, that's going to be the 1 to the bad right there. And especially when you're fighting for a division title, that's going to be 1 to the bad, because Arizona is going to play Philadelphia at the end of the year, right before the final, I think the second last game of the season. And they're going to probably just maul Arizona. And, here you are, you've got a loss to them. So Those are the games. You have to get up for all these games. You just can't. You can't just expect to roll your helmet out there. Now, last week against the Giants,
Giants are different. That's such a bad.
The Giants was a roll your helmet out there game. It really, really was.
Yeah.
That was when you watch their tape. No matter how much you got convinced or whatever you said, it didn't matter. They were playing with a first-year quarterback who clearly wasn't ready to play.
Right.
Well, this quarterback was the first overall pick, at Carolina, and so and a very decorated quarterback at that. But we'll get into that another time. But yeah, you watch this tape, Burns, those guys get your attention. They've got some players that will get your attention.
Oh yeah,
when you go forward here.
Yeah, they have guys who can impact the game. Like you said, we'll get into some of that in the next episode later this week. We're going to lead off today. We're going to talk about a couple different things today. We'll obviously get to the mailbag. Next segment, we're going to talk about, obviously, we've seen some changes that we like to the offense. We've seen some different things that are encouraging. So we're going to kick around some of the other things that, since we seem to have power here, Brian, we seem to be moving the needle and the Cowboys are taking our advice. We're gonna look at a couple other things that maybe we'd like to see added as the Cowboys get. Are you going to
take my picture again and post it like I'm dreamingly looking at like into the future again?
I'll be honest. I was we got Proud Brian 2.0, which we just started a Facebook page. If you want to keep up with what we do, just look up Love the Star on Facebook. We're going to be doing some different things there. Maybe Brian and I can jump on and do a live at some point on there with you guys. But but no, I was looking for. I needed a header image, and so I just pulled up one of the more recent shows we did, and I was just like, all right, let me pull one up and just grab a screenshot from it. I literally clicked to the center of the video and hit pause, and Brian, that was the image I saw, and I was like, man, this is God. This is divine intervention saying that this is the picture that we need. But it looked great.
My second Proud Bryant moment, like I was just dreamingly looking at Dak, like, oh my gosh, you're playing so well, which you are.
Yep,
you really
exactly.
Are. Congratulations.
You came around like I did. And so, you finally come over to my side. So I appreciate that. But we'll dive into some of those different things. But yes, go like us on the Facebook page now. Love the Star. We're going to be posting a lot of fun things there. But before we kick off with that, we're going to get into some sad news, some upsetting news. Leighton Vander Esch is done for the season, which your antennas kind of went up last week when Stephen Jones on a Monday, when talking about Leighton Vander Esch, said, if we're going to get him back. And it's like, okay. There'd been a lot of talk like he was just going to be out for, several weeks, but that the plan was for him to come back. So that was the first time where you kind of sit up and listen. I remember famously Jason Garrett had talked about Leighton Vander Esch's injury. He had a nerve issue. And Jason Garrett in a press conference said, look, we're waiting for that nerve to we want it to calm down. We don't think this is going to be career threatening. And everybody went, whoa, Jason, where did that come from? And so it kind of makes you sit up when they start talking about Leighton and where he's at. So Leighton Vander Esch, Jerry Jones confirming on 105 through the Fan on Tuesday, he is done for the year with another neck injury, something that has plagued him throughout his career. For Sean Lee, it was soft tissue injuries. For Leighton Vander Esch, it is the neck issue.
Two very similar players, too, by the way.
Yeah.
Very similar players, yeah.
Definitely. I mean, look, Leighton Vander Esch is a Sean Lee, nobody's ever going to touch to me. I remember I polled different people around the league, players, front office people I know, coaches, different folks a couple of years ago, and I just asked them, like, hey, I'm trying to get a sense, who's just the brightest football mind you've ever been around? And there were people outside of Dallas who answered Sean Lee, who were really big fans of his. And so high IQ, Vander Esch, you were hoping was getting on that similar trajectory. And the defense reacted the same way without him. Sean Lee, when he used to go out, the defense would crumble. A lot of times that has happened throughout Leighton Vander Esch's career too. So Cowboys are going to have to make do without him the rest of the way. They obviously lost DeMarvin and Overshown very early in the season. That was a killer for them. They responded by having to put Micah Parsons at a heavy dose of linebacker in recent weeks. Don't know how much of a fan he is of that. They've had to put Rashaan Evans in, who at least against the Giants did not play terrible, looked okay out there.
Sure did.
Looked like a guy that they had previously been interested in, the same draft as Vander Esch. They liked him a lot. And so, you hope Evans can contribute. You hope Damone Clark keeps coming. But outside of that, right now, if you consider
Marquise Bell.
Yeah, but if you consider Micah Parsons if you consider him an edge rusher, then that means that on your active roster, you have one player listed at linebacker, and that's Damone Clark. Wanye Thomas, Marquise Bell, those are safety hybrids. They're listed on the roster safeties. Rashaan Evans is a practice squad guy who's gotten the elevations. I'm sure he's going to be signed to the active roster eventually. But that right now is where things stand with this linebacker situation. So, Brian, as we talk about Van Der Esch, who now the discussion moves to, is he out for the rest of his career? There's talk that this could be a career ender for him. Right. As we look ahead, what is the answer at linebacker for you? Is it, what they did on Sunday, moving a lot more Micah Parsons there? Do you think, hey, let's go Bell and Clark with some Evans sprinkled in there? Do you start looking around the league, looking for practice squad guys to sign away? What is the answer, do you think, on the linebacker situation for the Cowboys?
Did you get a chance to watch the All-22? I know you've been busy.
I did, yes. I did watch Cowboys-Giants.
Okay. Parsons was in coverage, I believe, 5 times that he was in coverage. They had 3 sacks when he was in coverage 5 times.
He's a hell of an athlete.
There was some what was amazing to me about the way that he played the other day, and I can understand why he was frustrated, because that's a situation where he's probably not used to having to play that much. But yeah. I went back and watched every play he had. I went back specifically to watch the type of game he played. Doubled 6 times, ran a read option at him twice. One twist led to the Neville Gallimore sack that he was a part of.
Yep.
He covered 5 times. They had 3 sacks. The motion across his face slowed him up a little bit, and he was laid off the ball on several times. Am I missing something there with Micah Parsons?
No, and I think I will say him being laid off the ball, because I noticed
like
that
he wasn't ready a couple of times.
That's something that stood out to me in particular watching.
And I wonder if he was distracted in this game.
That's exactly it. I wonder if his responsibilities were so intense and so varied that it just it was a lot to process. And he was, it's not just your pin your ears back and go or figure out how you want to attack this guy. It felt like he was just being asked to do a lot. And so I think he was, in response, maybe just kind of system overload a little bit. Was he thrilled after the game? No, he left before locker room open. That's not like him. And he talked about that it was a little bit frustrating. He's had a bit of a frustrating run at times, but
Tyree Phillips blocked him several times in that game.
Yeah.
That to me, we talk about Micah Parsons, and he's one of the best defensive players in the league. And in my opinion, what's unfortunate is he left the locker room at the end of the day when he was directly responsible for, in his coverage, allow them to sack people. He could have taken the opportunity to praise his teammates. One of the sacks he normally gets is when you have a compromised center that's not very strong. Tank Lawrence got that sack. You know? I mean, there's some things that they need him to do scheme-wise that he did, and they had success. That would have been a great opportunity for Micah Parsons, in my opinion, to talk to you in the locker room after the game, talk to everybody afterwards and say, hey, man, I'll tell you what, it was great to see Tank get a sack there. Tank's one of the best guys when it comes to helping some of us. It's a great job. Glad to see Neville Gallimore. Man, we ran the twist stunt. We've talked about it. We did it at practice. We got it home. Neville got home. Great job. And by the time I came around the corner, Neville was already on the quarterback. That would have been a great opportunity to talk about his teammates there. That would have been they mauled the Giants. They mauled them. That's not a game that you walk out and say, I'm perplexed, I'm confused, I'm whatever those words that he used. I think that's unfortunate right there. You had a hand in playing a really good defensive game. It just didn't come with sacks and tackles for you. But there were a couple of times where you got blocked by an inferior offensive lineman. Single blocked.
Yeah, I think consistently, here's what I will say. I certainly understand the frustration of a Dalton Schultz is wanting to get paid. He gets tagged, and then his usage goes down, and that becomes frustrating to a player. a guy like CeeDee Lamb is trying to get paid. Nothing gets done before the season. And then he's standing up there against San Francisco and he's getting 4 targets and he's upset on the sideline. I'm not saying that's why he was frustrated. I'm just, we're connecting some dots here. So for Micah Parsons, who's heading into a negotiation this offseason, and there was talk of, maybe a 20-sack season. I know I was one who said it. I anticipated him to have 20 sacks this season. When the production's down and now he's being taken out of the rushing, I understand how for a lot of these guys, it's like
he had rushes, Bobby. He had some rushes.
Yeah, he did.
He had rushes against an inferior tackle.
Typically, no doubt. Typically, though, you don't expect to come out of a game and say Chauncey Golston got more opportunities to rush the passer than I did, which is what happened. Golston rushed the passer more times than Micah did in this game. And that you can understand how, he's probably a little frustrated by that. But you're right. He still needs to, I think, respond better to it. And I think he will the next time. And I think he undoubtedly, he's one of these guys who he typically makes mistakes once. When he makes a mistake, he generally responds to it the right way. And that's a big thing.
He was incredible as an off-ball linebacker. He didn't have the tackles, but he had coverage plays. He had things that he was able to help the defense win that game. I mean, to be dominant. To me, his teammates, they get excited for him. They do. They get, they the way they rush the passer, the way they cover, it allows him to be the lion and hunt and do all those things. I just think it was one of those times where, the optics of it wasn't very good. The optics were bad, and he should be proud of watching the tape of him playing coverage because he doesn't play coverage that much. He doesn't get the opportunity to play coverage, and he showed he could play coverage. You talk about complete linebacker. All the things they ask him to do. He helped. I mentioned that 5 coverage opportunities, 3 sacks. That's good. That's damn good football right there. So to me, when I watched the tape, but he had some pass rush opportunities. It wasn't like this normally like he does, like he always gets, but the game was in hand. The game was clearly in hand. And I just think that's the unfortunate part of things is that it looks bad when you blow somebody out and you have a hand in helping in the blowout, but you don't want to talk about it.
Sure. No, and then look, we've run into that before. Very famously, after the Tampa playoff game last year, Dalton Schultz didn't want to talk to anybody, and he had a good game, and they won, and it was just, that kind of shows worse. I remember very famously, this was an issue with Cole Beasley at the end of his time here in Dallas. He just got to a point where he didn't want to talk to anybody. I don't think that's the thing where Mike is at. Mike, again, young player, still adjusting, expectations different. That's kind of where it's at. Now, really quickly, just on the plan at linebacker itself, Brian, before we jump into this other stuff,
that's a big part of him having to. I think he's going to have. That's my whole thing. Wasn't to try and rail on.
No. I totally understand.
I'm trying to paint a picture of if you haven't had a chance to watch the All-22, you can watch Micah Parsons each individual play. His ability to help as an off-ball linebacker was really good in that football game. Really good. And if it requires them to play more off-ball linebacker so they can continue to win games, sign me up. Sign me up because I think others benefit from him playing linebacker too. The threat of him maybe rushing, allows Neville Gallimore to get home, or allows Fowler to get home, or allows Tank to get home. The threat, the offensive coordinators are worried about dealing with Micah Parsons. Your whole game plan going in is, how do we block 11? Well, wait a minute. They're playing him at off-ball linebacker now. Oh, wait a minute. We've all our protection set on how to block 11. Where he is, identify where he is. So I just, if he has to play like he did against the Giants and they continue to dominate and blow people out, sign me up. Sign me up for that every single time.
When we look at the snap counts within the box, just lined up in the box, obviously, top 3 guys, the 3 guys that got at least 20 snaps playing linebacker in the box, Brian, were Damone Clark, Rashawn Evans, and Marquise Bell.
Right.
Is that essentially at this point, obviously with Micah sprinkled in there? Hell, they even at times there were, Tyrus Wheat was in the box doing some stuff. Curse and Wilson, they come down there, do some things where they play hybrid. But is essentially right now your linebacker core, Evans, Clark, Bell, and then some rotation with Micah. And if that's the case, is that good enough? Or do you think that they need to look at, hey, let's look at some practice squad stuff here. Or, hey, I know Rashaan Evans played okay, but you can't bank on Rashaan Evans consistently.
Yeah, I think, man, Bobby, we always laugh about this because you and I were at in Oxnard, and we were kind of walking from practice one time, I remember, and I'm like, Bobby, we're going to wake up, and the next thing you know, it's going to be Thanksgiving.
Here we are.
Then here we are. And you wonder, is there some move? Is there a poach move that they can make? Do you play more Wanye Thomas down in there because he's got toughness? He's not the biggest guy. I mean, he's tough and he runs well and he's physical. Maybe, man, they get away. It's amazing how they get away with it, but they do. They put Bell down there, Thomas down there, Kirst. They put guys down there in that box, and those guys play well. They really do. I don't think you could poach anybody, Bobby. I don't. I think you're going to have to ride with the guys that you have right now, and hope for the damn best. You've made your bed. You've made your bed, and now you need to go sleep in it.
And in some respects,
unless there's an injury, and they. But if I'm poaching, I'm trying to. If there's a linebacker out there that's got a little size to him, and they feel like he can run a little bit, a sideline to sideline guy, downhill player. Those guys are all probably on active rosters. But maybe there's somebody sitting on one of these practice squads that you would go and take a look at, and poach him and try and get him ready for December.
Which, to be fair, and I don't think this is what you were saying, so I'm being clear, not that this is what you said. Like, when we say they made their bed, we're just talking about the roster construction and everything else. To be fair, the two guys that they banked on, essentially, I think being their primary guys are now on injured reserve. Right. Vander Esch and Overshown. Right. Those are the guys, and they thought Clark would be in that mix too, but they
made their bed. They made their bed with how they constructed the roster. That's what it is.
Their primary guys they got hurt. But man, I'll say this: you heard the same things I did, Brian, and we saw the same things out at training camp. I will say this team was really excited and thought DeMarvion Overshown was going to be a difference maker year one.
Yes.
I think there's absolutely no what we saw in training camp, what we heard from him when we sat down and interviewed him and everything else. Yeah. I don't think there's any reason to doubt that when he comes back, that's going to be an incredibly exciting player for this team. Say it, Brian. What do you want to say?
No, I want to say, Bobby, that every time, everybody thinks
the ACLs.
Everybody's think I'm a wet blanket guy anyway.
Gallup, Steele,
yes,
Overshown.
Yeah. Every time it's like, well, they're due back, they'll be fine, and then 11 games in, we're like, man, he doesn't look the same. We had Brian Baldinger on today. On Baldy's Breakdown weekly on 105.3 The Fan now. We've got him every Wednesday at 4:00. And Baldy, we asked the question about Pollard. And he goes, I don't think Pollard looks the same. These guys that come back from big injuries, that have opportunity, I'm learning now it takes time. It's not plug and play. It's not, he's coming back from injury, let's plug and play. No, it's probably going to take another year, and they kind of figure things out that way.
Something to monitor, no doubt, and I'm sure linebacker is going to be on the list of guys that the Cowboys
Jeremiah
are looking
Trotter
at.
Jr.
There you go. You drafted Pops.
I drafted Pops.
Full circle, boy.
Pops made me look smart.
Here's what I gotta say, Brian. Regardless of anything else, that's the one guest we need to get during draft season. Is we need to make sure that we interview Jeremiah Trotter Jr. on this podcast, and you get a chance to.
I would love to talk to him about his old man. He is one of the toughest guys. I will give real quick. I'm going to give Jeff Lurie, the owner of the Eagles, a lot of credit for that one.
Yeah,
I've told the story before. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I probably okay. I just
no. Joe, go into it. I love the story.
Real quick. 1998 draft. Jeremiah Trotter, Stephen F. Austin. He's got a bad knee injury. He's kind of dealing with a bad injury. But we had him so high on our board, just like, man, this guy, he makes plays, he's tough and all that. Talked to Team Doctor. Team Doctor tells me, Mr. Lurie, he goes, I don't know if Trotter's going to play 10 games or 10 years. Well, he ended up playing 13 years or something, 15 years or something like that. So, but Jeff Lurie told me and the doctor, he looked at me, he said, if we like this player this much, let's draft this kid. Let's take this kid. And we drafted him, and now he's a legend, and legend in Philadelphia for what he did. But his son's a hell of a player too. It really is. It's great to see him. It's great to see all these players and their kids play. It means it's about time for me to get to the lake. But it's cool to see them all play. It really
Just
is.
think about it, Brian. In the last several years, you've studied Jeremiah Trotter Jr., Antoine Winfield Jr., and Mario Edwards Jr. Mario Edwards Jr., think about this, Brian. He not only got into the league, he's now, I believe, retired. So Mario Edwards Jr. has made his entire passage through the league.
It's fun to see the Horns and the Surtans and the Winfields. Yeah. And man, it's then in this draft there's an alt, and I've studied that his dad was a tackle, John Alt.
Joe Alt is going to be one of the big time tackle prospects in this draft. There's no doubt about it.
Yep.
You're listening to the Love the Star podcast, the Love the Stars and Odyssey podcast. You can find it on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, Brian, like we said at the beginning of the show, Brandon Cooks had his breakout performance, thanks largely, I think, to us. We got to take a lot of the credit, I think, for that.
Has anybody thanked you yet for that? Is anybody anybody text
yet.
You and said thank you for all this?
Not yet.
I don't expect they will.
I was going to leave my address on a little note card on McCarthy's on his little stand.
They're way smarter than us, Bobby.
That way he just knew to write me. I'm just kidding, y'all. There's good people over there in that building doing great work. We're just having fun here. But we talked a lot, not just here. There was a lot of discussion in general about, and I don't think it was any football savant thing on our part. There was a lot of discussion from people watching the Cowboys saying, you've got to take advantage of things down the field. You've got to take advantage of the middle of the field. You need to let Dak open things up there. I think there were probably players, including Dak Prescott, who expressed that themselves. So they're the ones who probably get the credit for actually moving the needle. But Brandon Cooks gets more involved. CeeDee Lamb, they start targeting a little bit more. You're seeing them push things on offense. There are just these things that have occurred during this season where this Cowboys coaching staff appears to be pretty receptive to the feedback that they get from their players and from people within the building. They're willing to make some changes. So, Brian, as we take a look at things and where the Cowboys stand right now, 6-3, in all likelihood, it's not out of the question yet, but in all likelihood, you are going to play a road playoff game. I think this is a team that makes playoffs. You're likely going to, as it stands now, going to be on the road. Because the Philly is on track right now.
We got New Orleans.
Philly, I believe it's New Orleans or San Francisco, but you're on track to basically be on a road playoff game. And this is a team right now, Brian, that I don't know that I ever would have thought I would have said this about AT&T Stadium. It's become such an advantage for the Cowboys. That unlike a lot of other places, they have the longest home winning streak in football right now. Dak in half of his last 24 starts there has put up 40 points, which is just absurd.
Yeah.
So it would help if the Cowboys could get there, get some home field advantage. And in order for that to happen, Brian, we're going to need to win a division. We're going to need to make some tweaks here. So as you look at this Dallas Cowboys team, is there anything, one or two things that you look at and go, man, this is something right here that they've made these adjustments. Here's where I'm still waiting for an adjustment, and I'd love to see it happen.
I would consider bringing Tony Pollard off the bench.
Ooh, interesting.
I'm sorry, my voice is done from radio today.
No, it makes you very emotional.
Bobby, I want to bring Tony Pollard off the bench. Please answer my question.
Yeah, look, I think that Tony Pollard, that's an interesting one to put out there, is that, and what's the
I'm
the
sure
approach
we'll get
there
ripped for it here, but
what's the line of thinking there for you? Do you think it's alleviates pressure from him? Is it about starting, or is it more about splitting reps to you? What is it that you have in mind specifically?
Kind of feel like that Rico Dowdle will give you a little bit of that juice to start the game. You know, when you need to kind of get a little rhythm with your blocking, maybe a little rhythm from Mike as a play caller. He's obviously got some rhythm with his quarterback throwing the football. You know, maybe there's some running plays. He could pop some runs. We had that flip play was a positive play for him, 21 yards, made somebody miss. You know, I think it's a little bit different when you're calling ball plays and it's 2nd and 5, 2nd and 4 all day. You know, I think your quarterback can thrive in that. I think that Rico Dowdle is finally, and gosh, I'm just going to say this, but here we go. Knock on wood. And if you watch me on video, I'm hitting on my forehead right now. But knock on wood, Rico Dowdle, I didn't want to say it. Anyway, he's playing. I didn't want to say what I was going to say about that because I don't want to.
No, you let it up. You knocked on wood. Now you got to say it, Brian.
No, I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say it. I am not going to say it because I'm not going to say it. Everybody out there knows what I'm talking about. This kid is availability. It's about availability, and he is doing a great job with availability right now. I'm going to hand him the football. I'm going to get in a rhythm running the football. I'm going to get the offensive line some confidence that, hey, we're running the ball, we're having some success. I'm going to pop Tony Pollard in there. I'm not talking about the Tony Pollard coming in the second series like he used to do when Zeke was around. I'm talking about, no, it's like, it's a run. Boom, put Pollard in there. Let's go. Okay, it's a run. Take him out. Put a pass in there. Pass. Run again. I'm just I'm rotating those guys in there, but I'm trying to find a little rhythm. And I think Rico Dowdle running the ball will give you a little bit better rhythm, and I think it will help the offensive line get going in a game. With some positivity that the tight ends are blocking, the tackles are blocking, your center's doing a good job of getting a second level, and you're getting the cut that you need. I think if the Cowboys would find some success running the ball early, I think it would help them throughout the day. Instead, then they've been getting in some, people will tell you maybe Pollard's a little anxious trying to hit the hole. He feels the pressure. He's getting the money. He's trying to make some things that, they're not blocking great for him, but he's not seeing the holes either when they do block great. Yeah. So maybe Dowdle will give you a little bit of that little jump, juice, whatever you want to call it, and then you throw Pollard in there. Skip Pete said this, and Skip's now with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Skip Pete was telling people, if you want Tony Pollard to be really, really good, have two backs, him and another back. And Skip's right. Yeah. Skip's absolutely right about that.
What was different for you when the Cowboys were trying to figure out the Marion Barber Julius Jones situation? They were pretty committed for a while there.
I wasn't on staff there. No. I can't speak from that.
Right. But it's just as somebody who watched it, because I know you weren't there at the time, but as somebody who watched.
I was watching it. Yeah.
Because there was a big push for Barber to get the carries, and ultimately when he kind of took on the lead role, he was not the same effective back that he had been behind Julius Jones. What is it that causes? We just talk about Dowdle and what he can bring being a lead. What is it that makes it beneficial for somebody to be the reserve, like it was seemingly beneficial for a guy like Marion Barber?
Well, yeah, and Marion Barber, and if I'm right about this, Bobby, when he was at Minnesota, he was in a two-back system where they
Lawrence Maroney.
Yeah, Lawrence Maroney, that's right. Good memory, Bobby. Great job. But at least I remembered they had two backs. But that's kind of where maybe with Pollard, it's that role of, okay, and Patrick Walker, who I work with on the break, and I think Patrick's got some really good ideas about things. And he was thinking that maybe the load of having to be the primary back or the featured back is too hard on him. Now, I'll tell you one thing. This kid is a tremendous pass blocker now. He's got awareness. Yeah. And if you said, put him in when it's passing, because he does understand blitz pickup. He understands how to come across. He sticks his nose in there. He stays square. There's some things that he does that allows Dak to throw the ball. And that part of it, if you want to put him on the field for those things, I'm all for that because he has got a feel for that. But maybe as the primary back, the extra carries, the early pressure in the game, the freshness of a defense, maybe there's some things that kind of where he's used to being, and he even did this at Memphis, right? Henderson, I remember those guys. It was like there was kind of a rotating system of what they were doing. And I think that's where he was never really the primary guy. And we were all screaming for him to be the primary guy. But in reality, maybe he's the guy that needs to be the secondary guy. Let somebody start the game for him, get things going, and then insert him into the lineup and let him take advantage of that.
I got two things, Brian, that I'd like to see here for the team. And I got one on offense and one on defense. First one on defense, and they've already started to do it a little bit, at least this past week. I'm really curious, other than just the introduction of Donovan Wilson back in the lineup, why Wanye Thomas became such an afterthought. Because he's been a good player for them, and he played a lot in the slot against the Giants the other day.
Sure.
And so, he was getting opportunities a little bit here. I'd like to see him get more involved. What do you think happened there? Because he was playing. Was it just the snaps became hard to come by when Wilson came back, and they were really liking what Bell was doing?
Yeah, I think that. I think and I'm not a huge PFF guy, but if you look at the ratings from where the safeties have been, they've been much lower than what we saw last year. I mean, people are throwing at me, well, what's your problem with Malik Hooker? Wasn't Malik Hooker rated like a 80-something, high 80, one of the best? Now he's down 70-something. I mean, still.
I think everybody's down in the safety
Everybody's down in that safety group. Yeah. To me, with Wanye, I mean, I think it's about trust. But how could you not trust him? Because every time he goes out there, he gets that interception the other day, and that's very much it's very much like an old David Irvin when you play 16 plays and you get 2 turnovers, or you get 2 sacks or something like that. But he's a guy that's always around the ball. He's physical. He's aware of where he needs to be. You don't see him bust. At least my eyes don't see a bust player. A bust when I mean busting assignments.
Yeah.
Not a poor player. But man, I want to see him play more. I really do. I think he's so emotional but he's locked into where he needs to be. And the fact he's the personal protector will tell you he's a smart guy because he has to sort everything out. The Cowboys have one of the best special teams units in the league when you look overall.
Bones has done a great job this year, and those guys.
By the way, it's funny. I was talking to somebody today about bringing back Kelvin Joseph.
No, Brian. No.
Everybody's against me on this Kelvin Joseph thing. I do have one guy that's with me. One guy's with me. You want to know who that is?
Kelvin Joseph.
Yeah. Nope. Who's with me on Kelvin Joseph?
Bones.
Damn right he is.
Bones.
He lost Goodwin.
He's a fantastic gunner. No doubt about it, Brian.
I'm saying, but you know what? What's going to happen is Will's going to have to handle Bones, and McCarthy's probably going to say, I don't want him, and DQ's going to say, I don't want him, and Jerry Jones, who always loves his special teams coaches, and we've had some legendary guys here. When you start to, when you talk about Joe Alvazano and Joe DeCamillis, we've had some Bones Fossil. These guys are like, when it comes to personnel and they're trying to fight for their guys, they could be pretty persuasive. So I guarantee you, Will McClay is right now thinking of ways to how to block Bones Fossil from making an assault to get to Jerry to get Kelvin Joseph back on this team.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it, but
Bones, I agree with you, man. It's about the players. Go get the player. Go get that player.
Water under the bridge, Brian. Here's my other recommendation. Wanye Thomas is one. Here's my other recommendation.
I love more Wanye Thomas, by the way.
And this is the one we haven't gotten yet. I want to see, Brian, more of the Michigan tight end. That's what I want.
I do a show with Eric Chiafalo on 105.3 The Fan, as we all well know, the G-Bag Nation. He came out and said, and I think it's tongue-in-cheek. I don't think he's being serious. Well, maybe he is. He's saying, proclamation, do not throw another ball to Luke Schoonmaker.
Oh, no. I'm glad you said that, Brian, because that was my setup the entire time. I want to see more of the Michigan tight end, and I mean Sean McEwen. Here's the thing: is that I need to see while you're dealing with
Michigan tight end. All right.
While you're dealing with Hendershot issues.
You're a jackass.
Look, I'm a big Schoonmaker fan. I think Schoonmaker is still trying to find his footing. And look, maybe that comes just with reps, and maybe he needs the reps. Yeah. I hate
the word maybe.
No, but here's what I'm just saying. I'm just saying that because it's like maybe I'm just a jackass and I don't know what I'm talking about here. But I think that.
That's the truthful thing you've said in 11 weeks.
He missed so much of training camp and the offseason program because of the injuries that he was dealing with. That I wonder if it's like, hey, you know what? Let's just get you focused instead of on game plans. Let's just get you in the classroom for a little bit. McEwen's been here. McEwen's a guy that has been in the DAC yard for 4 years. He's somebody who he can step in. He can block just as well right now. He's, there's not a lot that you're getting in the passing game, but whatever you need in the passing game, he and Dak have worked together. They know each other. That's their.
As he's tipping a ball across the middle in the air.
I just personally right now, Brian, would say put Sean McEwen in for a couple weeks. Let Schoonmaker get the time in the classroom that he didn't get, and the time in the classroom, honestly, that Tolbert could have used last year that he didn't get to get. And then he was just kind of putting it. Schoonmaker and Tolbert are in very similar situations. And I remember you brought that up when Schoonmaker first got hurt. You said, hey, this is what happened to Tolbert last year. He got hurt early, missed meaningful time.
God, I wanted to be wrong.
Brian, that's where I'm going with this one is I'm saying give McEwen those tight end 2 reps that you need to hand out during the game and just let Schoonmaker stay in the classroom the next few weeks.
Okay, here's I appreciate you throwing me the curveball and I swung and missed.
That was the point. That's why I said the Michigan tight end. I was wanting you to do that.
Yeah, you did. You drew me off sides. Good Dan Marino, John Elway hard count on that one. Hot. I think to me with Schoonmaker, this is where I was wrong about Schoonmaker. I really believed in my evaluation of Schoonmaker that he was a plug-and-play blocker. That's what I believed.
Me too.
I believed that he could be. I watched Michigan run the football. I watched Blake Corum. I still watch Michigan run the football, for 190 something yards and all that. A lot of that went behind Luke Schoonmaker. A lot of that behind a Joe Moore winning offensive line that they had at Michigan. Luke Schoonmaker, as good of a college blocker that he was, it's not translated that way here in the NFL. I think there's things that I think he could tie people up. I think he gives really good effort. I don't think his technique is particularly great at times. The holding call he got was unfortunate, but I really, really believe with all my heart that he was going to be plug and play blocker. And that's just not the case. Not right now. Not right now.
No, and I missed on that too. Hopefully, he just gets those, that time to, continue to grow. And like we said,
he's dropped some balls too.
Well, and look, we talked about this last week a little bit. This is proving to be tight end is proven to be a position that still takes some time to grow into and to be the pro that you're going to be. There's just some stuff. So that's just where I'd be right now.
Well,
get the guy who's spent
Dalton Schultz. Yeah, Dalton Schultz, who absolutely disdains me, and I don't blame him for that. But, Dalton Schultz, the first, year, 2, I was like, well, I was throwing a lot of dirt on Dalton Schultz. Dalton Schultz, and who ever thought that Dalton Schultz and Noah Brown would be the 2 primary receivers for a team on the rise in Houston? Congratulations to both those guys, too. They're both playing great. But the thing about it is, I really misevaluate Schoonmaker. I think he can be what you want him to be. Of course it's not right now, and he's a 2nd round pick, but I missed the evaluation of him being a plug and play player. That's my sin for Luke Schoonmaker.
Well, we'll see how much longer it takes him to fall into that rhythm and get what he needs to. I still believe Luke Schoonmaker can be a good player. So not throwing dirt on the guy yet, but you'd
have your foot on the shovel. I can tell.
No, not foot on the shovel, but go ahead and give those reps to a guy who's been in the building for a little bit. Let Schoonmaker take some more time in the classroom. That's just where let Schoonmaker, spend the first.
Let's get Peyton Hendershot back. How about that?
We could use that too. You're listening to the Love the Star podcast. The Love the Star is an Odyssey podcast. You can find it on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, Brian, it is now time for our Dean Julia Love the Star mailbag, where we turn things over to our dear sweet listeners for their questions, their thoughts, comments, whatever else. First one here from our good buddy Vach Lombardi. Vach says, this is the last game where you expect it. He's awesome. I'm a big fan of Vach.
Listen to his podcast, by the way, him and Will Steele and those guys. If you can find their podcast, I mean, they have them out there. Go listen. They do a great job.
He's over on the volume. Just go ahead and search Vach Lombardi, VOCH, and then obviously Lombardi. He says this is the last game where you expect Dak not to play in the fourth quarter, reasonably so. You expect that you might be able to take this team to task for the first 3 quarters. Right. Do you use the game to get Cooper Rush more reps, or do you go ahead and see what you have in Trey Lance, Brian?
God, I love what he just did. I do. I mean, I absolutely do. I mean, you can make Cooper Rush the inactive quarterback, right? That's what you do. You make him. You would make him, because you have to elevate. You have to. The third quarterback's not going to get in unless both quarterbacks, unfortunately, are out of the game. But yeah, I mean, it's an interesting thought. And you know what? I'm kind of leaning that would be pretty cool to see. I would like to see, Trey Lance get into a game like that, especially if the game plan is going to be like how they finished the the Giants game.
Yeah.
But you need to have a, why do I not think? I just don't know if this is going to be like the Giants game. I don't. I just feel like
they are better than the Giants.
They're better than the Giants are. They're much better than the Giants. Their record doesn't say that they're much better, but this seems like a game that maybe that Dak's going to have to play through, and it might be. I don't know, Bobby. Would you call it a 10, 13 point game? Is that still enough to make Dak maybe miss a fourth quarter?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's a lot of turmoil. We'll get into it all, but there's a lot of turmoil in Carolina still. Frank Reich is taking back play calling.
Yeah, he's taking play calling back.
It's a total mess there right now. So, look, do I think it's the most impossible thing in the world?
I don't think it's a 38-7 game. Do you?
And I don't think so. But, like, could they be up 31-10 with a drive or two left in the fourth or something like that?
All about that. If you want to go ahead now, if you want to go ahead and make him the problem is if something, unfortunately, again, don't want to even talk about it, but what if it happens early? Now it's you don't have Cooper Rush. You have can you go still win the game? With Trey Lance playing quarterback.
Yeah.
Do you feel I would have no problem with that. You talk to people in San Francisco, they absolutely, they'll tell you what happened to Trey Lance. He couldn't stay healthy. That was the biggest problem with Trey Lance. They just couldn't stay healthy enough for them. So
yeah, everything you hear about Trey Lance coming out of San Francisco, the guy worked incredibly hard.
Yeah,
and we all know he's got physical traits.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be against it. It feels like they've kind of committed to just this is essentially a redshirt year in the system, and Lance is going to learn. But
I'll say though, what if it came down to the Commanders game at the very end? And you didn't want to expose Dak or expose Cooper Rush.
Sure, let him get in there.
You're kind of like you're already set. You're locked in. It's either you got the division or you're locked into the fifth seed. And you're going to have to go to the 4 the next week.
Yeah,
I would not be opposed at all of Trey Lance starting the game against the Commanders.
Me either.
That's where I think I would save things. That's where I would kind of look at it. I would look at that final game. If you have to play, you have to play. But there also could be a situation where, okay, Philadelphia wins the division, just saying. You get you're second in the division, and, you're locked into the 5th seed, and because you're ahead of Minnesota and somebody else, and so, or Seattle, whoever, and you're now, you want to get the opportunity to kind of just make sure you have both quarterbacks ready to go for the playoff game. I would put Cooper Rush as the second, Dak Prescott as the third, and start Trey Lance.
Next question here from
spent a lot of time on that. I'm sorry, that was me.
No. That was good. Next question here from at Mr. Slinky 3, Brian. Is this? I
think we've answered one of his questions before with that name.
I think we have before. Yeah.
Yeah. The Slinky.
Is this the best stretch of Dak Prescott's career? Is this the best you've seen him play?
I'll tell you what, his rookie year, though, he went to Pittsburgh and won a game, went to Green Bay and won a game. He had a running game, had a really good offensive line. Saw him play.
Let's say
mistake-free football.
Let's think of consecutive 4-game stretches, like period. Is there like a window where you can think
what happened? What happened before he was on a hell of a stretch before he got hurt? Right. That's where I come down. I think the best at my. But they weren't winning games. They weren't winning.
But the best I've seen him play, because remember that defense was one of the worst we've ever seen.
No,
that was that team could not. You remember Dak brought them all the way back against Cleveland, and then they give up a 60-yard reverse to Odell Beckham Jr.
Yeah, right.
And so if you look at the way he threw against, just look at the way he started that season. 266 on the road against the Rams. Then it was 450 against the Falcons, 472 against the Seahawks, 502 against the Browns, and then he gets hurt in the Giants game. Yeah. He was really impressive there. I think that the way he started the season in 19, he was really impressive. He had some good stretches there. some of the stuff he did early on with
Before
Amari
he got
Cooper.
hurt in New England, he was on a good run too.
Yeah, some of the stuff he did with Amari Cooper here. But yeah, when you point at, like, you want to talk about success and some of the best we've seen him play, you had a 4-game stretch there, Brian, in his rookie season where over 4 games he threw 10 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, had 275 passing yards a game. That was win on the road against Green Bay.
Right.
The overtime victory at home against Philadelphia.
Right.
On the road whooping of the Browns, and then on the road against Pittsburgh. So in terms of team results and leadership and winning, that it's probably that stretch. In terms of just raw play and raw statistics, something at the beginning of 20 or maybe something during 21, end of 19. But right now he is absolutely playing really, really good football.
Playing great football. Doing a great job protecting the ball, doing a great job of finding his receivers, eyes downfield, avoiding rush, moving when he has to, scrambling when he has to, getting him in and out of good plays, really kind of doing all this without a running game. He really is. Their running game has been non-existent. Everything's been put on his shoulders to have to make plays. Him, CD, Ferguson, those guys, it's been put on their shoulder, and they've done a great job.
Last one here from Robert Kraft. No, not that Robert Kraft. This is with a C, Brian. Who else can help as a slot corner? Because obviously Jordan Lewis has had some issues, but who else can help at slot corner right now? We mentioned Wanye Thomas took some reps there. Right? You've got Israel Mukuamu who can play there.
My guy Bob Kraft's trying to get rid of Jordan Lewis. It sounds like.
Jordan Lewis, we talked about him a little bit in the last episode. He's obviously smaller player. He's on the back half of his career. He's coming off a foot injury that can rob you of some of your explosiveness. So he's been picked on a little bit. Still a veteran, but do you still think he's probably the best option inside at slot?
Yeah, I would think so. But it depends on when you get in these games where you're going to get some pretty tough receiving crews down the stretch here. How much do you trust Mukuamu? How much do you coaches always will go with what they know. They've seen Jordan Lewis make plays. That's what they're going to go with.
That's fair. All right, that does it for us here on the Love of the Star podcast. We will be back with another episode with you where we will just deep dive into all the intricacies of Frank Reich's offense, all the history, the rich history with which it's based. We'll talk about the fact that in Super Bowl 27, when it was a 52-17 blowout, it should have been 52-10 because on 4th down, Frank Reich threw a touchdown pass at the end of the third quarter that should not have counted because he was a foot or two past the line of scrimmage when he threw that ball, and it was never flagged. Yeah, it was garbage. Shouldn't have been. It should have been 52-10 or 59-10, Brian. But that does it for us. We will look ahead to that game a little bit later this week. For Brian Broaddus, I'm Bobby Belt. We will talk to you guys again later. Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. If you want to see more of our videos, be sure to check out our playlist and let us know what you think in the comments below. Also, don't forget to follow us on social media to stay up to date on our latest updates. Links are in the description. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.